I am Jean-Marc Zola, in charge of Digital Energy Division of Schneider Electric for Europe. And it's my privilege to facilitate this panel with three industry experts and three customers, actually. We will testimony on this topic. Let's make a quick introduction. Deepan first.
Hello everyone, nice to meet you all. I'm Deepan. I lead sustainability team for India in retail, and I'm also responsible for real estate sustainability in Asia Pacific. Thank you.
Frank?
So Frank Tarot, I'm in charge of engineering for Accor Invest Group and in charge of the decarbonization plan for our portfolio. Yeah.
Véronique?
Nice to meet you. Véronique, I'm in charge of CSR for the French retail banking Société Générale in France.
So, as you can see, we have a diverse panel, and we'll get into the topic. First, before getting into the topic, I have been asked to give some instructions. There are two channels, one for French, immediate translation, and one for English. So, we're going to talk, so you see here the panelists. We're going to talk about small, mid-size buildings. And one of the reasons why we're going to talk about small, mid-size buildings, I want to share with you just two numbers which really give you the importance of this kind of buildings in the current world we are living in. So the two numbers, you can show them today. First, we will have almost half of the buildings in 2050, which actually already exist today. So a big existing stock of buildings. You can even argue that in some countries it can be even more. So it's all about existing, it's the big chunk of what we are talking about is about existing buildings. So that's the set of number one. And then the other one is that the high majority of the buildings belongs to small, medium-sized enterprises. We have a tendency to talk a lot about large buildings. We have a tendency to think that, decarbonization will come primarily from large buildings. Of course, it will come from large buildings, but small, mid-sized buildings will be very important for our future. What are the drivers which are moving those buildings and driving actually the renovation of those buildings? And there are three main drivers as we can see them today in the market. Number one is about obviously sustainability, decarbonization. We all know the trend, we all know the commitments which are made. We all know that actually buildings is actually the second source of carbon emission when you look on a worldwide basis, just behind transportation. So buildings, and especially small mid-sized buildings, are in the middle of the decarbonization journey. Second one, which is obviously linked to some extent, depending on the countries, is energy costs. Energy costs, at least in Europe, in most countries of Europe, used to be something which was not really tackled. In the past years, especially last year, we all experienced a big increase in those energy costs, and it's been a little bit of a wake-up call for all of us. And the third one, and I want to spend a couple of minutes on that, is about regulation. You know, while certainly large enterprises have already had plans when it's about decarbonization, when it's about energy cost reduction, regulation is playing a very important role for small, mid-size enterprise and for small, mid-size buildings. And you all know that there is currently a European regulation, which is called EPBD. There is also the taxonomy and so on, which are going on. All of that is translated into local regulations. So some countries are more advanced than the other ones. And I want to, for once, I'm going to pick on France. You know, France, I'm French, so I'm very comfortable to talk about that. France, we are usually behind. We are usually, the ones who never agree with the regulation. Guess what? When it's about those kind of topics, France is leading the pack in Europe. And there are two décrets, laws, which are currently going on. One is called Décret tertiaire, which impose energy reduction by 2050. And I think it's in the tune of 60%, actually, energy reduction compared with the baseline, which was set, I think, in 2020, if I'm not wrong. And another one is Décret Bax. So while Décret tertiaire is about an objective, Décret Bax impose building management and monitoring in buildings of above a certain size, but the size is very low. Actually, and I don't want to say a mistake, in 2027, it's above 70 kilowatts. You could translate that in 1,000 square meters. So, big importance of regulation. So, now, when you look at all of that, the good news is that there are solutions. There are solutions which allow us and allow those small mid-sized buildings to cope with those objectives. We have indicated some numbers here, which are obviously some rough indication that needs to be fine-tuned. One very important additional bullet point is we are talking here, at the difference with large buildings, we are talking about a payback which needs to be in the tune of 2 years. For this kind of buildings or businesses, we don't talk about long-term investments, and they are looking for faster return on investment. So, we have set the scene. Now, what I would like to investigate with our panelists is what's been the experience that you have been going through, and what did you put in place? So let's start maybe with you, Deepan. Few words about first. Let's explain to us Decathlon India. What is it, and what's the context?
Great. As many of you know, Decathlon is like one of the largest sport retail chain, and we have 1,700 plus stores across the globe. Specific to India, so we have 120 plus sites ranging from various sizes, from 100 square meter to like a 5,000 square meter area. So coming to the context of the commitments, what we have a commitment validated by Science Based Target Initiative to reduce our emissions by 42% in 2026 or 2030 compared to our 2021 baseline, and 20% by 2026, with an ultimate goal to become carbon neutral by 2050. And also, we try to enhance our renewable energy portfolio. So in our consumption, in our like energy consumption, as in India, so we are already RE100, which means 100% of our energy, what we consume across all the stores and warehouses in India, is from renewable sources. So this sets a context like why we wanted to go into the automation and also like energy efficiency topics. So one is when we expand our business, it's very tough to sustain 100% renewable energy sourcing. So the first and foremost step is to reduce the energy consumption while we increase our business. So that was our primary motive to go and invest into this solution to reduce our consumption. And also we want to venture into to reduce our electricity bills, which is very high in terms of the cost, operational expenses, and to just like focus more on the asset safety and electrical safety as well.
Okay. So actually, when I was looking at the three drivers, for you, the main one was energy cost.
Yes, so that was one of the main drivers, like what we have been working on.
Frank, what about, so first, Accor Invest.
Yeah. So Accor Invest, so as the name is showing it, we come from Accor, we're not Accor anymore. So we are a real estate company, we own and run hotels. So we have about 700 hotels, mainly Europe, mainly eco and mid-scale. So this is all the brands you know, Ibis Style, Novotel Mercure, all the hotels you've been sleeping in. So, and some of us, sure, I'm sure. So to set the picture, the energy we spend yearly is about 120 million euro a year. So that's quite a big topic. This is a second spending after the human resources we have to run the hotel. So one of the drivers had definitely been, as you said, the wake-up call we had with the energy increase. Then we have more and more people saying, okay, we need to address the energy. So it's helping us into getting to decarbonization. And then when we look at it, we have a goal also. So the plan is to reduce by 50% the carbon intensity between 2019 and 2030. So currently we are about 50 kilograms of CO2 per square meter, and the target is to go lower than 24, 22. So that the target is to reduce 50% the carbon emission. Currently, when you look at the energy, so kilowatt hour per square meter, the average about our portfolio, 250 kilowatt hour per square meter, and we plan to do some of the carbon reduction thanks to the energy, but then the energy reduction is not 50%, it's just about 30-40% to reach the 150 kilowatt hours per square meters. So that's where we are.
So, carbon emission reduction, number one, energy reduction, number two. You notice that we didn't talk about regulation, actually, which is, I believe, a common theme. But we'll talk more about that a little bit. Not only when we'll go into the more diffuse market. So Frank, I'm staying with you. We understand the objectives, which are, by the way, a stretch objective. What did you put in place?
So it's quite a diffuse real estate, 700 properties. We have our own technical team involved into piloting better the building. And of course, I'm here on a Schneider meeting, so I should say we need to invest. But for me, first, so we need to invest to have the good way of piloting, but we need to invest on our people. And with such a diffuse real estate, we need to make sure we have the correct pilot into the car. As I always say to the team before validating any CapEx or looking at the OpEx is, why am I going to buy you a Ferrari if you're not even ready to drive the Trabant, you know? So we have a lot of hotels which have been built 50 years ago, and they are one of the best energy efficiency, and they have no BREEAM, nothing, and just because we have the correct pilot. And when you have the correct pilot, and this is what we put in place, is measurement of monthly data of all of our hotel, benchmarking solution, climate correction, so partnership with companies supporting us to do all of this aggregation and to be able to isolate which hotel are good, which hotel are not good, and supporting the hotel not good. And when we have good hotel, this is the time we finance, and this is the time we invest CapEx. So I would say the first stage on the decarbonization has been low to no CapEx, to say let's invest on people, let's invest on training. And then for the lowest performers, if the driver is good in the hotel, then we start to invest. We start to invest, as you said, on a really short payback. So short payback on hotel, specifically guest room management system. You've all been into your hotel. I'm sure during winter the room was too hot because our hotel people, they always try to make it as much comfortable as possible, but then they heat the room 24/7, and you're going to be in the room 8 hours. So thanks now to the room management system, we are capable to detect you're going to arrive into the room because we can interface with PMS. We can detect you are in the room, so we provide the comfort when you have somebody. So we are not yet into sufficiency by impacting your comfort. That's what we try to do. But we are thanks to technology and investment we do on simple solution, is to provide comfort when needed. And we stop all of this energy wastage about energy spent on when you're not here. So that's the type of investment we do. And of course, there's going to be higher capex by what we have. We have a plan from 26 to 30 to go for higher capex investment because for decarbonization, we need to work on the energy sourcing. Of course, a lot of solar projects, changing from gas to heat pumps and all of it. The classic decarbonization, which require a lot of investment, but first, invest on people and short payback.
So, invest on people, monitoring and control as step one with a less than 2-year payback.
Correct.
And then higher capex in renewable electrical equipment and so
getting
on.
out of gas.
Yeah, getting out of gas with a longer payback.
Correct.
Depend. Decathlon India. So, I believe you've been through a very interesting journey. Lots of stores which have been equipped. Tell us a little bit, maybe let's take another angle, which is what's the technology you have implemented? And now you start to have a little bit of time to step back. What's been the achievement you've been able to implement?
Great, thanks for asking this, John. So way back in 2018, when we started this journey, so we were exploring the ways to reduce energy consumption. So one way is to monitor and automate as much as possible. So by then, the BMS solution was like well established in a large scale buildings and industrial setup. But for small size and medium size building, the solution was not readily available. Otherwise, it's very tough to downscale the BMS solution for like a small and medium scale buildings, because you need to be very conscious about the cost you invest and also the money that you just like get back through the savings. So by then we partnered with Zenetics, one of the Schneider's subsidiary now, and we started with a small pilot. We took up one store and then we implemented a small pilot. So what we did is we measured the consumption pattern for every asset, majorly focusing on lighting and air conditioning. And then we monitored the performance and we collected the data and we understood the data for over weeks. We benchmarked the consumption pattern. We studied the pattern, how it's being consumed and how it's been utilized. And then we deployed a smaller controls. So with very limited hardwares, with very low upfront cost. And then with the controls, we were able to save close to 12% of the energy. And that gave us the confidence to deploy more better sensors and to have a better control. And then we added more in terms of electrical and system safety monitoring. So when I say the system safety monitoring, so we started monitoring the performance of any anomalies in the system like voltage fluctuations, like current unbalance, a performance of the UPS, batteries and all these things. And then we extended this to monitoring the indoor environment quality, where we monitor the air quality index, CO2 sensor, CO2 measurements, and also relative humidity. The intention to ensure the comfortable shopping experience for our customers. With all these experience, we extended this to almost hundreds of our stores where we operate in India in 3 phases. So the tangible benefit of what we achieved is like a 10 to 12% on an average saving for wherever we have deployed the proper controls. And also there is a CO2 reduction over there. And finally, the intangible benefits are many. So the intangible benefits, if I say avoidance of any forced maintenance, accelerated aging of the assets, fast failures of the assets, any fire hazards. So these are the things that we were able to avoid because we have a better alert mechanism that has been deployed on an automated basis. And also we get an automated report every week that says what went well and what went wrong at every site level. So that's how we have been working on this project so far, and that's our success story as well.
One question for you. All of that is good, but I think when I've been interacting with obviously lots of customers during those 2 days, one of the key questions I believe is also, technology, we understand that, we understand the benefit, but what about the cost and the time to implement? Can you give us an idea? Because here we are not in the big buildings. Usually you are in a store which is operated, which is running, with a business which is running. Can you give us an idea of, for instance, one of your store, how much time did it take to implement such a solution?
So to answer your question in terms of the cost, so I would rather answer it in terms of a payback. So we were expecting the payback of 24 months when we deployed it. But for a surprise, we were able to get the payback within 18 months. So because we are very choosy in what kind of controls we want to do it with a minimal effort and minimal expense, that's one. And another, to answer on the timeline for implementation, this was one of the first tasks given to me when I joined Decathlon. So to complete 30 sites, deployment in 30 sites in 60 days. First 15 days went in just contract signing and work order. So I was left with just 45 days.
It was not because of us, huh?
It's not because of you, so of course. And so I had only 45 days to just implement. I was worried how it's going to happen. So finally we made it. So 30 stores in 45 days, on an average 1.5 days per store.
Which is impressive. So I'm staying with you. If you have, if you had to highlight 2 key success factors in the journey you have been into, no more than 2, what will it be?
So one is the in-depth monitoring of the assets, and that enhances the longevity of all the assets, because everything is an investment. So that's one of the success. And second thing is, of course, the cost. Anything comes with the cost, how much benefit that you get and how much money that you save. So these 2 things are one of the biggest success. Of course, everything zeroes down to the emissions and carbon offset, what we do. That's one of the main strategies and one of the main goals.
Hulk, same question for you.
To success factor, I would say first we have the same. First one is knowing the asset to make sure we target the right assets. So same, we have the monthly monitorings and the tools to be able to have the benchmarks, the low performers, the high performer, learn from the high performer, support the low performers. So that's really the first one, is really to make sure we have this animation going on between the teams, to make sure we promote the low performers becoming better and the high performers for what they've been doing. So to make sure we have this kind of gamification of competition between all our staff piloting the hotel, so that it become a game to be more efficient and to be visible. So that's one of the key factors. The other one, it's how simple the technology can be to be understood quickly by our teams and by our guests. Today, when you package, for example, we speak about the room management system. So at the end of the day, this needs to still look like a simple thermostat for any guest. A guest going to a room is not here to be a tech geek and to play with a thermostat. That's not the first experience they want to have in a room. And unfortunately, you still have a lot of rooms where you have an A4 printed next to the thermostat, and then you just feel lost and say, I'm never going to have the temperature I want to have because I have to read this procedure. So, and that's clearly something I'm a pen on Alexandre back from Schneider, because that's a key element of success, is to make sure when we choose a solution, because now a solution is not only one machine. A solution, it's different topics, different part of a system, and we need to make sure we make it industrial so that it's easy to understand for our teams, for the guests, and always the same, so that we don't have a technical consultant reinventing the wheel at each project. We just say that's the way you have to install it, and that's the way it's going to work, and it's going to be okay for us. The thermostat doesn't need to ask you if you want to speak Chinese. It just needs to ask you which temperature do you want. But just this level of making And with this, for example, room management system, when we implement it into an hotel, payback time is 2 to 4 years, depending on the country and cost of energy, and the guest comfort level improve. So and there's no disturbance to the hotel because except if we come from a very old solution and we have a lot of recabling, most of the time the recabling is very simple and we don't lose business. But you need to spend this extra time at the beginning to make sure you have a package industrial solution. So yeah, knowledge of the asset, and second, industrial simple solution. Yeah.
Very clear. And I think your message about simplicity, I'm making also the link with what we said about simplicity of implementation, is really key when we talk about this kind of buildings and this kind of occupants, actually.
Yeah. Simple. Keep it simple.
Thanks. So, Véronique, I've not been ignoring you.
No.
But...
No. But it's okay.
Now, we are switching gear and we're going to talk about Société Générale.
Yep.
So before we get into the topic, explain to us a little bit what's your commitment, the context of Société Générale, and why this topic is so important.
Yep. With simplicity, of course, as we said before. So to make it very, very simple, I would say that CSR is just at the heart of the strategy of the group. That's clear, and we intend to be or to become a leading bank in sustainable finance, but more globally than that, in advising and accompanying our customers from end to end in their transition journey. So that is globally speaking what we want to do. On beginning with us, of course, we are also a company, so we have also taken strong actions in order to optimize our footprint. That is, for instance, we have committed to reduce by 50% till 2030 the group footprint in itself. But as a bank, the major footprint is not ours; it is the one of our customers. So on the other side, we also do a huge work to into brackets what we say to align our portfolio of credits with the Paris Agreement. What does it mean? That we have lots of credits. We are a big bank. We take the most emissive sectors, oil and gas, cement, real estate, commercial real estate, residential real estate, and on all of these sectors, we say, okay, that's where we are. We know that we need to, and we will be zero by 2050. What is the target for 2030 and before? So that's what we do, and we commit to that. For instance, we've just been committed to reduce our footprint as far as oil and gas upstream is concerned by 80% till 2030. So strong decisions, and it's needed. And I could give additional figures, but it's not my point today. So a strong shift, internal shift for the company, in order, at the end of the day, to better also accompany the customer and be this bank, as I said before, who will be in a position to advise them and to advise them from the very beginning till the end, that is the financing and the implementation in itself.
So Véronique, if we make a zoom now on what I would call your scope 3, which is your customers,
Yep.
I believe what is also interesting for this audience is that you have in your portfolio of customer not only the large enterprise that we have listened to in the previously,
Yep.
but also more diffuse customers, which are a single building owner, and not only a portfolio of buildings. So how would you characterize their needs? When you interface with them, what's their feedback?
So a good question. So we are very present towards this segment of corporates, and globally speaking, of course, it's very various situations, as you said before. But globally speaking, we must have in mind that they, globally speaking, do not have the same structure, the same infrastructure. They are not that well equipped as maybe we large corporates are. They do not have expertise inside. They do not have dedicated people. And well, it's not to you that I will explain that CSR is very technical at the end of the day, very complex, and it needs some advice. They need some advice. So for most of them, they are a little bit, first of all, very interested and very fond or likely to enter into the journey, but to some extent a little bit lost also in the whole regulations. That's the situation as today. And
So clear.
maybe coming back to what I just began to say before, we think that we are legitimate we as a bank, in order to accompany our customers in this very specific journey. That is, what do we do? When I say we accompany the companies from the very end till from the very beginning, till the very end.
So it's not only financing.
So you're fully right. We used to be only financing hundreds of years ago. Well, of course, we used to only finance. I'm kidding, of course, but it's part of our job. But we are also shifting. We all speak of a huge shift. We do a shift as well. We are also shifting, and we are shifting from only financiers, I would say, to advisors in the whole transition, energy transition, but globally speaking, the whole transition. It means that we do not do that only by ourselves. We need to work with experts, of course. That is, we work with on the basis of a lot of partnerships that we choose, of course, that we select very thoroughly, and we work with dedicated expertise. We set up partnerships, and we offer these partnerships to the customers. On top of that, we've trained, of course, the whole sales force of SocGen, which speaks to the customers to CSR. We have set up dedicated CSR directors in all our regions in France. Some of them are here today, and they have been fully trained to that. So they are there to accompany the customers, but also internally our teams.
So Véronique, you've been speaking about partnership,
Yep.
About getting access to some expertise. In a few, I wanted to say minutes, but seconds. We are in partnership, actually. We just signed a partnership in France. Can you say a few words about what we are doing together, Schneider Electric and Société Générale?
Of course. Before that, because you gave me an additional 2 seconds, maybe another example, and then the best one for the end, of course.
For the dessert,
For the dessert, which is the partnership we just signed with you. But just to give you some illustrations, maybe 2 examples, because I think I've been a little bit general. So 2 examples of what SMEs need and what we can provide them. For instance, I said we are still financing them, of course, because it used to be, it is the basis of our job. But we set up specific loans. That is, for instance, we set up loans with KPIs, CSR KPIs, and if the company fulfills the KPI, then the margin is lower. If the company does not fulfill the KPI, then the margin is increased, and the difference, generally speaking, goes to an association or CSR association or something like that. Just an example. Another example of partnership, for instance, we've just also signed a partnership with a company that you know in France, which is AFNOR, in order to help the SMEs at the very beginning to say, okay, where do I stand? Where do I start from? And what is my CSR strategy? And this company, which we sign a partnership with, is going to help our customers. But last but not least, of course, we've just signed a couple of days, I would say ago, a very important partnership with you. We are very proud of that. Thank you for that. Thank you for your trust. And what is it? Still in the same mood or the same intention, we are going together to accompany our medium-sized customers. I would say that is above a certain level of turnover. We are going to jointly address those those companies in order to propose them to audit globally their energy consumptions. That is your skill. Propose them solutions. That is your skills. And of course, if we can finance, we will be more than happy to help at the end of the day. That is a very concrete example. So it has just started, and I think it's going to be very interesting.
Thanks, Veronique. Thanks. So we are at the end of this roundtable. I hope you get a glimpse of what's going on. You understand that it's a very evolving topic. We are certainly just at the beginning, but a lot going on, and certainly more going on. Now, I'm due to open the floor to questions. If there are any questions to our panelists, well, I think we need to equip ourselves with a headphone, otherwise we will not listen. Is there any question? Okay, the first one is always the most difficult, so go ahead.
Thank you. It's a quick question for Deepan. Earlier, you explained the two biggest key success you had to implement the solution, but you didn't say what was your two biggest difficulties to implement the solution right after the pilot you did. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very nice question. And so the first and foremost difficulty is the compatibility of the assets that is already there, because wherever we implemented the initial projects, we did it in the live store. It's not a new building, it's an existing store. And we have to have the existing assets to talk or like to interact with the new system, what we are deploying it. This was a challenge. So it was not that easy. So we have to have some kind of the interlink between the existing old assets and the new system. So we had to like add some kind of a retrofits to that. And that was a challenge. And any new buildings, what we do, we have that in the mindset that to have this as a beginning stage itself, as a design stage. But retrofitting it's a bit challenging, but we made it happen in terms of like the compatibility. And second thing is, once you deploy, you will not be able to see the savings immediately. So it's not like you deploy the system and there is a savings. That doesn't work practically. The key success comes, the challenge comes when your team who is like operating on the ground, so they should be aware about it. So if they are not aware about what's happening and what the system performs and what is the benefits of this, so it will not work efficiently. So we had to train our ground staff to just like know what is the importance of energy efficiency, monitoring the health and benefits of the electrical systems. And then, so we had to like reap the success benefits out of it. So these are the couple of the big challenges that we faced when we deployed it, when we scaled it further.
So it's actually very similar to what you were saying about education.
Yeah, analyze.
Change management.
Yeah.
Other question?
My question is very similar to them, is about the difficulties with the people, because I know that to change the culture is a high difficult sometimes, and in order to get the advantage of a BMS in this case. So how do you convince the people to adopt a more efficient culture in the management?
So I will maybe distribute the floor, starting with Veronique and then Franck.
I mentioned, I will answer maybe internally first of all. It's, as I said, a huge shift for the company we are. So we spent lots of hours of training with globally the whole chain. And one of the keys that, as usual, it has to be impulsed by the top. So that is the key, impulsed and repeated. And so we train the whole chain, and I think that is very important. And then, as usual, the first successes, of course, they take some time to be delivered, but the first successes need to be shared very quickly. And then, it's a magical cycle, I would say.
Yeah, in terms of success, I would say one, sharing successes definitely appeal people to go. Maybe two examples. One is on the tool to track all of the energy and then providing dashboard to each of the hotel. When you have the CEO visiting an hotel, connecting to the mobile and asking to the GM, I don't understand, you increased last month, and then you won. So you develop an app, and then you make sure that every level of the hierarchy is using it. So, and then GMs, the general managers, they speak each other, and then they say, be careful, next time he's going to come, he's going to ask you. So then I won, because then they're going to look at the tool, and then they will start to track and see where the energy consumption is coming. So that's a bit the stick management, so not really the carrot. On the carrot side, I would say all our GMs and what they have in their DNA is to receive people and make people comfortable. And providing them the capacity to see the data about temperature, they understand, and it makes a link with what is their DNA. A general manager is not an engineer. Okay, so they are here to provide comfort and make sure the guest is comfortable. So the idea, and we are still struggling. They are not always keen on looking at the temperature in the lobby, temperature of the bedrooms. But this is a good tool so that they start to understand and say, look, we don't ask you to make sufficiency and impact your guest. We ask you to make sufficiency, and it will improve your guest comfort. And but this is still the beginning of people catching it. We still have this strong belief that we try to kill, to say the only way to reduce energy is to make people uncomfortable. And definitely it's not the case. Most of the best scenario we had is we provide better comfort when we have guests, and then we stop wasting energy on the other time. The example of, I can tell you, we have a high percentage of hotel with guests complain in winter, it's too hot. And it's just because we try our, let's say the team, they want to make it so comfortable that they push the button too much. And we need to provide them that, be careful, you're pushing the button too much, and even you're going the other side. You want to make it more comfortable, but in fact you're destroying it. But it's a difficult change, this one. Difficult, yeah.
And I think it's a very powerful message, actually. Comfort doesn't go against energy reduction.
Not yet.
It's even the other way around today. Good. We are right on time. It's my duty to invite you to the building booth, where you will learn more about the solutions, the experience. There is also, for instance, an ROI calculation, return on investment calculation tool, which is made available that you could try. And yeah, please leave your headset where you are. And we have a gift for you. If you want to download this QR code, you will have a retrofit guidebook, which is made available and which could inspire you. Thank you all very much for this panel, and thanks to you.
John, thanks everyone.
Thank you.